they don't have the war in the streets that they had between 2014 and 2017. They don't even have what they had in 2019, 2018, 2019. So it does look, I mean, it does look from here like we could be heading just to 6 more years at least of Chavismo and intense US sanctions and so on. Elon Musk is a new figure who's entered the fray. Prior to this whole election, Elon Musk didn't say anything about Venezuela. And now he's the biggest loudmouth on the platform that he controls, and he's spreading the fakest of fake news. He's going nuts in support of Maria Corina Machado. These are some of Elon's tweets. I mean, I'll see if I can enlarge them, you know. And, you know, it'll always be like with Elon, it's like somebody will tweet something, oh, the protesters are, the Venezuelan people are rising up, the military is out to get Maduro, you know, just cranking up the mighty Wurlitzer, and he'll just be like, seems legit, or #1 in Venezuela. He doesn't seem very articulate. And here you can see he said, "This is real," referring to Bill Barr's Department of Justice issuing arrest warrant through the DEA for Nicolas Maduro, painting him as the leader of this giant imaginary cartel called Carteles del Sol. This is real, Elon says, because he acknowledges tacitly that he's been spreading so many fake videos and so much fake news. The real question that I think everyone wants to answer is, why is Elon doing this? And I have my theory that I'm hoping to substantiate in the near future, but I would like to hear yours.
Well, it's just pretty obvious that Venezuela is one of probably could even say the richest country in the world, between its oil and gold deposits and then all the other rare earth minerals. So it's pretty naked there that Elon has an interest. And other than that, I don't like to speculate too much. It's just, to me, it's so transparent that I don't really think we need to. And it's also just obvious he doesn't even know anything about Venezuela. Probably didn't even start thinking about it until this year. And the odd connection for me is also just this political network that he seems to back that is tied to Javier Milei. You can see on X, many of the main figures that are on Elon's platform have promoted Milei, and Elon himself went and signed some deals with the Argentine president there, who's pretty much handing his country over to foreign banksters and of the IMF. And Maria Corina Machado tweeted the night before the election that she'd had a conversation with Milei, and that was what prompted Elon to come out as an aggressive supporter for the Venezuelan opposition. It's funny to juxtapose Milei against Maduro, because people may be aware that part of the corporate coup launched against the Venezuelan state in 2019 was the decision from Britain to hold on to billions of dollars worth of Venezuela's gold bullion. And this was gold that had been stored years prior in London in the Bank of England's vaults that belonged to the sovereign government of Venezuela. What people may not realize is that in September of 2018, so this is months before the recognition of Guaido came down, and days, weeks before John Bolton and the United States attempted to assassinate Maduro, his government actually began the process of attempting to repatriate that gold, actually asked England to send that gold back to Venezuela, which is a very typical request that any sovereign state can make or should be able to. And it was only thanks to the rollout of this shadow coup government that London was able to say, oh, actually, we don't know who runs the Venezuelan government, so we have to sit on this gold indefinitely, conveniently at a time when London was facing a gold shortage. And Milei, meanwhile, comes into power claiming to be this, renegade libertarian who's really just a neoliberal globalist rebranded. I mean, libertarians in the US see what he's doing in terms of gutting the Argentine state, but that's not anything new in Latin America or the world. If you're running an IMF backed government, that's not libertarian, that's neoliberal. If you're tying your currency to the dollar and letting foreigners come in and make decisions about your economy, I don't think you can be considered a libertarian. So Milei, in the last several weeks since taking office, has actually been shipping Argentina's sovereign gold supply abroad. And he actually tried to do this secretly without getting caught. And now he's trying to keep the destination secret. I'm willing to bet it's London. But I mean, this is why we have to really question this. I've seen figures describe the block that Elon represents as mainstream alternative media. I have to credit David Icke for coming up with that term, because he did, and I think it's a really accurate description of what we see with these people that claim to be, so chill and cool. And Bari Weiss went down there and did a big puff piece on Milei.
Ben Shapiro.
Tucker did before he was elected. I would like to have maybe him speak to how he feels about Milei now on his own. But it's clear that Elon through Twitter is really boosting this phony libertarian model that is really just neoliberalism repackaged, and then cracking down and demonizing a leader that is actually trying to run a sovereign government. So why is that? I don't know. Whose interest does Elon really work for?
Here's a tweet by Eric Prince, who is basically running security along with Mahmoud Dahlan for the monarchy of the United Arab Emirates, which was supposed to be part of this giant NATO, Middle Eastern or Arab NATO that the US was trying to construct before October 7th just blew all that up. And the leadership in Gaza saw it coming. Sort of anti-Iran, anti-Palestinian NATO. And Eric Prince, former CEO of Blackwater, is very close to this Elon Musk kind of mainstream right Trumpist network. And he's getting in on the action. If he's constantly tweeting calls for, the arrest or assassination of Venezuela's leadership. If Kamala Harris and Joe Biden want to actually support freedom, and he capitalizes freedom. I don't know why these guys always capitalize random words. And legitimate elections in Venezuela, they should elevate the bounties to $100 million each on these wanted criminals, Nicolas Maduro and Diosdado Cabello, and all others in their cartel. Then sit back and watch the magic happen. You can even pay these out from frozen regime money already in US banks. Yes, this sounds like a great idea. Eric Prince is obviously in on it. There's this whole network. And my theory, Eric Prince is just a businessman who uses private militias to advance his, basically recruits guys who have combat experience, special forces, killers from around the world to serve as a private militia for him so he can rustle up business on behalf of governments and money men. And it just seems like that these figures were all associated with one another, and they were part of a lobbying consortium, which probably started with Juan Guaido, and they gained some kind of access to Maria Corina, knowing she was next in line to run, and that she promised them something. Like, you talk about Citgo being sold off. There's PDVSA, wouldn't she want to give up the state oil company if she came into power? And then all these guys think they're going to get a cut. I
don't think we should speculate until there's evidence of any of that, because it's pretty obvious that they have interests, but we can't illustrate a plot at this moment clearly. But
I'm speculating, so that's what I'm
I just don't like speculating, but that's just me.
Yeah.
So I would just note that on the Eric Prince tweet, he says watch, raise the bounty on this foreign leader and then let the magic happen. Interestingly enough, this week, the United States, for whatever reason, decided to move ahead and arrest Jordan Goudreau. You might remember was the leader of the Operation Gideon Bay of Piglets invasion. He's a former U.S. Green Beret who basically had some of his former teammates from the U.S. military go and train a group of Venezuelan military defectors in Colombia for a capture or kill mission in Venezuela targeting President Maduro because of those original bounties that were placed under the Trump administration. Those bounties came out, and then weeks later, Jordan Goudreau went ahead with this plan that was, harebrained and ridiculous. Anyone who knew anything about Venezuela could have told them what was going to happen, which was that his men got arrested. They're lucky they didn't get killed. I think it's only because Venezuela had intelligence that those American soldiers didn't die. And so that was the magic at play before. Eric Prince is basically saying, let's raise the stakes and try to get a more efficient operation that, again, I think would fail. And
he's basically saying, let me claim that money.
Yeah.
It's just not enough for me to send my guys in there.
He's saying let somebody claim that money, but that's why the timing of Jordan Goudreau's arrest is so odd to me, because Jordan and his plot all came out in the spring of 2020, 4 years ago. Why is it that this week, when there are elections in Venezuela, when Eric Prince is out there cheerleading for a new mercenary invasion private intelligence op, why did they go and nab Jordan Goudreau, who was apparently so confident that he wasn't going to face charges in the United States, even though we already knew he was under investigation, that he was still in the United States? Unless they had some sort of freeze on his passport and he wasn't allowed to travel, which is possible. But the timing is still very, very strange to me. And so I hope to look into that. I just thought, wait, Eric Prince is out there basically saying we need to try this again. And there's all this drama going on in Venezuela. Why does the Justice Department now say, okay, let's round up Jordan Goudreau? Did he have information that they didn't want coming out? Is there some intrigue going on behind the scenes? Those are the questions that I have.
Well, I think it all comes back to the thesis of your book, Corporate Coup, which everyone watching this should buy to understand what's happening now in Venezuela. It's all about the Benjamins. That's why Elon's interested. And there's a network based on my informed speculation that seems to have been lobbying and getting. And I assume they got some kind of assurances. And what Eric Prince is saying in his tweet is, he's not going to say that unless he's in on it, unless there's something for him. Let's, before we move on from Venezuela, we actually did invite Jackson Hinkle onto this stream just because he is the target of calls from pretty high level figures for his kidnapping, his assassination. There's a lot of violence being carried out by the opposition hooligans in Venezuela's streets. And Jackson Hinkle, who's in Caracas, is a target. So we invited him on to hear his perspective. This is one of the, and that just killed our monetization. So I'll have to cut that out. I actually didn't mean to put the volume on there, but this is a video that Hinkle made just showing all of that's Drew Pavlou, anti-Chinese psycho. All of these people are calling for.
Well, they didn't just call for him to be assassinated. They actually, what he's showing there is that they doxed him. They took photos and video that he posted on his Twitter account and then used geolocating to say where he was and tell people when there are armed criminal gangs roaming Venezuela's streets to go and find him. And Jackson told me this actually happened. He left his hotel after that came out, and then people were later had to evacuate because some suspicious people came to the hotel asking for him and were waiting in vehicles outside. So, I don't think it helps anyone to have Jackson detained there, except for people that want to silence him. He's obviously by far the most effective voice down there right now, countering this media war, especially because Elon has emerged as such a prominent voice playing against Venezuela at this time, Jackson has, led the charge in exposing the lies that Elon has put out there and helping, Jackson helped get this community note that revealed, I mean, and this is, this is where I do give Elon credit, because even though he himself is not maybe the brightest bulb on the tree, he did put some features on X in this platform that now are even exposing him as a liar. So he thinks he owns the place, or that he gave us the tools where now he can kind of manipulate us. But human beings, we're smarter than that. We actually were able to post on his lies community notes, and he got, I think, the biggest community note in the history of community notes on his lies about Venezuela. So he can lie all he wants, but if his platform is going to be dedicated to the truth and free speech, he's only going to get called out for it. And Jackson, like I say, led the charge. And so that's why these forces are now attempting to dox him. And that's, I mean, sick. They're trying to actually they're putting his life in danger. I don't know if you want to pull up the latest Drew Pablo tweet, where now they're spreading fake news rumors that actually Maduro has detained Jackson. They say that Maduro's government did this to protect him, but this is a lie. This is a complete phoniness. I'm talking to Jackson now. He's doing all right, not detained. So why are they spreading these rumors? And, they're even getting the U.S. government involved. So because this is all concerning a U.S. citizen in Venezuela. I just think that all of this drama and these attacks on Jackson are a testament to the power that he has on X and the voice that he has, which, has really been a boon to the truth.
He's definitely had the most reach of any Twitter account in English coming out of Venezuela, which is why he was targeted. We were targeted going into Bolivia to cover the election, which led to the election of Luis Arce over the coup regime there in a very similar fashion. You had ministers from the coup regime calling for us to be targeted, people following me on the plane during our connection, and Wyatt Reed got photographed. They were trying to dox us. It's a tactic of the U.S.-backed Latin American neoliberal right wing.
They're thugs,
and they're basically a bunch of, and as they would say in Mexico, they're run by a bunch of fresas who like sit in air conditioned, securitized apartment towers all day, and they have thugs on the street that they just pay just to create chaos. That's what's going on in Venezuela, and those are the shock troops of empire from Caracas to well, we'll talk about the thugs in quote unquote Israel in a minute, who are holding pro-rape insurrectionist riots at military bases. And they've got their thugs in the Donbass too, who sport Hitlerian insignia on their uniforms. These are the imperial shock troops. And they're targeting Jackson Hinkle. They're also targeting average people in the street. And I won't show the scenes of the gore of Chavistas being targeted, as Sandinistas were in the U.S. government-sponsored 2018 coup in Nicaragua. Where just average people who happen to be of the wrong political persuasion are being massacred. And I think that's, or brutalized and tortured. And I think that's what you would see if Maria Corina came in, is these kind of purges backed fully by the U.S. government. And you'd see the State Department just kind of shrugging the way they shrug about the hideous violence directed at Palestinians by their mad dog on the leash or off the leash in the Middle East. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Anya. I want to move regions now.
Sure. Yeah. I think that the Venezuelans have faced down another attempt to violently overthrow their government. I think the momentum has been taken out of the opposition. And I guess we should all place bets on whether or not Maria Corina Machado will end up in Miami or a prison cell. But there are a lot of other countries where I'll say she wouldn't have even gotten this far, considering her deep ties to the United States. Like, just there are receipts that we have, even that I have just as a journalist, thanks to WikiLeaks. I can only imagine what the Venezuelan government has, proving that she's a foreign agent. So the fact that she was able to run this campaign to begin with and just function openly out in the public this way is something that might not have been allowed in a lot of other countries.
Definitely. So buy the book, Corporate Coup. This is it at Or Books.
As much as I want a great Amazon rating, I would prefer that you buy it from my publisher. But if you do it from Amazon, that helps me too.
And this sets the stage for what's happening. So we don't have any other way of getting you the book, but I want our audience to understand what's happening in Venezuela as part of. I know there are a lot of people who have been watching us, came on as Grayzone fans or watchers, part of our audience since October 7th, because we've been focusing a lot on Palestine. But you have to understand Venezuela as part of the larger program that's also dedicated to snuffing out Palestine as a political project. It's the larger project that's also dedicated to balkanizing Russia and to eliminating any threat to American hegemony. And it's why the de facto Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, has pledged total support to Israel, as all the US-backed opposition figures, including Zelensky,
and Javier Milei.
And I mean, Javier Milei worships at the court of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah.
So you have to see this all as one
and
program.
Elon
Musk was present with Netanyahu at his repugnant address in the U.S. Capitol. So this is all one imperial program dedicated to Zionism and capital and U.S. hegemony.
And let me the last thing I'll say on that, since you brought up the wider global context for Venezuela, there are Russian advisors and military hardware present in Venezuela. The Venezuelans have close ties to Iran, have military equipment that they've also purchased from Iran. The allies across the globe in these various battles are the same. Iran and Russia on the side of the resistance axis in Palestine, Russia and Iran on the same side in Ukraine, where Iran has even provided military support to Russia, and also here in Venezuela. So this is, if it escalates and there is a regional war, which I don't think it'll get to that point, and I hope it doesn't, it is part of a global world war. And maybe 10 years from now, we will start to understand what is happening right now in that way. 10 years from now, when Russia, Iran, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia, and China, and India, and Venezuela, and all of the major oil producers, and all of the rising economies, and all of the primary oil consumers are functioning in this new world that they're crafting without the West, we'll be sitting here in the US and Europe like, oh, that's what that war was about. We lost because we were stupid. We were just idiotic, working against our own interests this whole time. Geez.
Yeah, I think we're at that moment, and we're going to talk about that next. Anya Parampil, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a marathon for you all week, and the marathon will continue afterwards, but it's important to have this perspective out there. Once again, the book is Corporate Coup, Venezuela and the End of U.S. Empire. Thanks a lot, Anya.
Thanks, Max.
I'll see you when I walk upstairs.
Okay, yeah. Sounds like a plan.